Well, and good morning, everybody, and welcome live here to the Elite Sports Academy for this week's show of the DPPG Sports Show. My name is Devin Poslesny. I am your only host here this week, unfortunately. Dan and Michael weren't able to join us because they're busy. They have lives. But I felt like because of the importance of the week coming up with the start of playoffs for the boys and girls Division III basketball, we had to do a show. So here I am. I'm going to do the best I can, and it'll probably be a lot shorter than without them, but it will be a lot of fun regardless. So with that being said, let's jump right into this, and let's first start by talking about last week's coverage here on DPPG. As always, the scores from last week for Laconia, as well as for Division II Laconia, Division III schools that we cover, Division 4, I believe, is Franklin involved in there. I might have missed them now that I think about it, and I apologize for that. And I also think I forgot to include hockey on that, so my goodness. My bad. Wow, I'm realizing I totally dropped the ball on that. But scores scrolling along the bottom, and yeah, I'm not gonna talk about the individual scores just because it's me, myself, and I. But let's talk about what we did this past week on DPPG. On Monday, we didn't have a game. On Tuesday, we covered Belmont at Prospect, and it was Prospect senior night, but also it was a good game in the first half. Belmont kind of seemed off. Prospect was playing well. That good combination created a close game at halftime. And then in the second half, Belmont took off on Prospect. They beat them, I believe it was 70-45. I'm realizing that my last second show notes are failing me right now. But so either way, a lot to a little in a sense. And Belmont beating Prospect at Prospect Mountain. But like I said, at halftime, it was a head-scratcher in a sense because these guys, it was a close game, and Prospect kind of back-of-the-pack type school as this year. And, of course, Belmont, one of the front-runners, they were close, which was weird. Come to find out, Belmont wasn't necessarily showing their full hand, as we found out in the second half. So definitely a good game overall. Gave Belmont some momentum going into Friday night's game at Belmont when they hosted Guilford. We didn't cover it, though, so we won't talk about it. As far as Guilford did beat Belmont at Belmont, by the way. I do know that much. As far as the next day on Wednesday, we had Kearsarge Plymouth at Laconia Winnisquam Interlakes, and both teams were short skaters. I think the Lakers had 8 or 9 total skaters. Kearsarge had a couple more. I don't know the exact number, but both teams were short skaters, and it was overall a good game. Kearsarge Plymouth still beat Laconia Winnisquam Interlake 6-0, but of course that was across the 3 periods. It wasn't 6-0 by the end of the first. So overall, a good game. Can't really complain. For Thursday, we had Winnisquam at Interlakes for boys. This was honestly a really good competitive game. Winnisquam would take a good-sized lead, and then Interlakes would catch up. In the third period, Interlakes came back to tie, if not take a little bit of a lead themselves. And then in the fourth quarter, Winnisquam pulled away from there. Overall, it was a good game, like I said. High intensity in the gym at Interlakes, and it was a lot of fun to cover. Hey, on Friday we had 2 games. We covered Belmont at Guilford for girls hoops, and then we covered Campbell at Prospect Mountain in girls hoops as well. Talking about Belmont at Guilford, hang on, I'm actually going to pull up my broadcast here on my computer for confirm the score. I believe it was 46-20. Guilford beat Belmont on their senior night. But from what I watched the first quarter or so, or no, not quarter, 3 quarters of the game after the fact. It was somewhat of a competitive game. Guilford was able to do Guilford things, and Belmont did their best to kind of keep up. But for the most part, Guilford took a lead and then just maintained that lead. Belmont was able to rally back, get 20 points on the board, but Guilford at that point had already kind of solidified the win. So it was a good game. Now, jump over to Alton, where Campbell was playing Prospect Mountain on Prospect Mountain senior night, and that was also a good game because it was more of a defensive battle. The final score there, 27-23, and it was close. They played each other hard all the way up until the last minute, where I think it was Thorogood who was throwing free throws with like 2 seconds left on the board, and that was ultimately what solidified the win for the Timberwolves on senior night. But it could have went either way, and that kind of is a little concerning going into playoffs. We'll talk about that in a minute, why that is concerning. But I'm pretty sure Campbell, they are in the girls. They were fifth. They were seeded 14th that night. Prospect was seeded 4th, and you had a close game between 4 and 15. So a little concerning for if you're a Prospect Mountain fan. But again, we'll talk about that in a minute. So those were the 2 games we covered on Friday. And then on Saturday, we had Berlin-Gorham at Laconia Winnisquam Interlakes. Good back-and-forth game. Berlin-Gorham wound up beating the Lakers 8-2, but it was overall, at the end of the first period, it was only 1-0 Berlin-Gorham. Laconia Winnisquam Interlakes was playing a very good game. They were able to hold BG, or the Mountaineers, down and keep them at 1. Berlin-Gorham then added a couple more goals in the second, and then took off on them in the third. Or actually, I think they took off in the third. I think it was 6-2 at the end of the second period, and then in the third period they added the other 2. I don't have the box score in front of me, but either way, it was a close game. Boyd Poulin for the Mountaineers got his first high school varsity goal, so want to give him a shout out. Good goalie matchups there between Melanson and Williams, and then Patrick Kenny for the Lakers. Those 3. Melanson and Williams obviously on the same team, but they battled well. It was overall, honestly, a good game, and it was fun. So all those games, of course, available to watch on demand here on DPPGnetwork.com. Now, there's one game I do want to talk about, and we didn't cover it, but it's a team in our network that kind of was a shock to me last night when I found this out. But Belmont-Guilford went and played at Hollis Brookline Dairyfield last night. And normal Saturday afternoon hockey game, right? Nothing out of the ordinary. But last night, the managers, Allison and Heather, do a great job of keeping social media updated for the Instagram page. And last night, I got home, from our game, doing some stuff, hung out with my little sister. She's a Girl Scout, by the way. If you want Girl Scout cookies, hit us up. But I got home, checked Instagram, and BG lost to Hollis Brookline Dairyfield in overtime last night. And now when I pull up the NHIA website here real quick, I know that BG was undefeated up until last night. As far as the number that, hang on one second. So it was 14-0 going into that game. Now Hollis Brookline Dairyfield is their first loss. First of all, that was somewhat, not really honestly surprising, because Hollis Brookline Dairyfield is one of the teams in Division III hockey who's a front runner. If I go and look at the standings here real quick for the boys hockey for Division III, it goes Belmont-Guilford, Berlin-Gorham, Pembroke-Campbell, Hollis Brookline Dairyfield. They're a top 5 school, and they're going to make playoffs, Hollis Brookline Dairyfield. But I think for me, it was more surprising because going into that game, everybody is like, "Oh, BG's invincible. They're not going to lose. They got this. Perfect season coming soon." As a BG fan, because I graduated from Belmont, so aside from the broadcaster, as a BG fan, I was just like, whoa, like, no way. As a broadcaster and an analyst, I have to say, it was a surprise in a sense. The fact that they went to overtime tells me it was a close game. If I'm not mistaken, it was 0-0 at the end of the first, 1-0 Hollis Brookline at the end of the second, 1-1 at the end of third, and then Hollis Brookline winning an OT. That tells me it was a really close game, but also, you know, there's always that possibility that you have a team who goes undefeated and I don't want to say gets to their head, but a team that goes undefeated and they think that nothing can touch them, right? There was a couple years ago, I don't remember what sport it was, but I remember going to a championship game. This one team was undefeated and was looking right past their opponent and wound up losing in the state championship game. Again, I don't remember who it was, what sport it was, but that's an example of how you need to stay focused. Now, Belmont-Guilford does a great job at that. You know, the coaching staff, Jason Parent, everybody, they do a great job at saying to their players, hey, focus up. You know, any game could be that loss. You know, no game is guaranteed. I mean, there have been times where I walked up to Coach Parent and said, hey, so just a question. And he's like, let's play the game first. And it's understandable. So he, as well as all the other coaches, do a really good job of keeping the players focused, grounded, humble, making sure that they know that any given day could be the day that they go from undefeated to one loss. So I'm not saying that BG is that team, like when I'm saying that they needed that loss, but a loss for an undefeated team might not necessarily be the worst thing. You know, yeah, it makes it so that on the T-shirts that are created after a championship game, it doesn't say undefeated, but it's only one loss. You know, BG more or less, I think, is going to lock up the first seed here in the next game or two, and they're going to get a first-round bye in the playoffs, and they're going to go, if I remember correctly, hockey standings this year, or hockey playoff bracket this year is weird in the sense that the number one seed gets a bye to the semifinals. There's only quarterfinals, semis, and finals. So, no, it's not like hope is lost, you know, game's over, nothing like that. But it's, first of all, it was a little bit of a surprise to me to go, whoa, okay. But also to sit there and think to myself, you know what, maybe, just maybe, this is not a bad thing for BG, you know. So I just wanted to bring that up and kind of quickly talk about it. Also just mention it and say, whoa, the undefeated Belmont-Guilford, you know, this is the team that scores on penalty kills, you know, shorthanded goals. So to see them kind of take a loss, it wasn't a surprise, but it was just like, wow, that's crazy. That's all I got. So definitely, that was a storyline I wanted to bring up. As I had mentioned, another storyline we could talk about in Division III is the fact that Guilford beat Belmont at Belmont. They swept Belmont this year. That was a big rivalry. We saw them at Guilford. We heard about them at Belmont. Definitely a big rivalry game. Want to give a shout-out to Belmont real quick because they had custom black jerseys on Friday night at Belmont. The players had the custom jerseys, had their last names on them. So I want to give a hand to the Belmont basketball program for not only making senior night special, but making it that much more special. And that was pretty cool. You know, as an alum, I'm looking at the photos on social media, and I'm just like, that's pretty cool. Like, well done. So whoever came up with that idea, good job. So I think that is all I have for recap. So that means it's time to talk playoffs. All right, so hang on. Let me get my computer here set up because we're going to do something kind of cool here, I think. See if it works. All right, so let's take a look here on the NHIA website. And hello. So, yes. Anyways, so let's talk about playoff preview. Okay. And now I want to, before I go any further, say this right now. This is the NHIA website, right? There we go. This is the NHIA website. They do a great job of keeping standings and everything up to date. I also want to give the NHIA full credit for their website here. I don't want to say that this is ours or anything like that. So this playoff bracket, these playoff standings usually are pretty well up to date. However, there are some times that they're not fully up to date. And with that being said, when I'm going to sit here and kind of give you an idea of what I think the playoffs are going to look like, it is all very much it has a big asterisk next to it, right? It's very much like, very tentative, right? Because some schools might still be playing. Some schools might be submitting scores still. I mean, we won't know officially who's doing what until tomorrow when the brackets come out, okay? So I just want to put that out there. We're gonna look at the girls' standings here first, and then we're gonna look at the boys' standings. And hang on one second. A little behind the scenes look. Oop, just needed to adjust my picture-in-picture there. But we're gonna look at the girls' standings, and we're gonna look at the boys' standings, and I'm gonna give you the best prediction I can give here. So there we go. So right there, from here, from above the photo you're looking at up, are your current top 15 schools. For the girls, there are 22 teams in Division III. 15 teams make the playoffs, which seed out, or the bracket looks like first gets a bye, then 2 plays 15, 3 plays 14, 4 plays 13, 5 plays 12, 6 plays 11, 7 plays 10, and 8 plays 9. So that's how that works. So what you're looking at right now, Campbell, which is, again, right above, right, hold on, right there. Campbell is unofficially the last team to make it in the playoffs, right? So Campbell up are your playoffs. If I'm not mistaken, Guilford right here is your ninth team. So, sorry, just double checking. So that means that these teams right here unofficially would be hosting next week, and then these teams down here would be traveling in the playoffs. Again, unofficially, because I want to bring attention to this right here. So we have Prospect Mountain. They have a 12-4 record. Hopkinton, they have a 12-4 record. Then St. Thomas, Aquinas, and Winnisquam both have an 11-5 record. And then Kearsarge and Guilford both have an 11-7 record. Now, I've had the tie-breaker scenario explained to me. I will admit I don't understand it. And I'm not going to sit here and go, let's go look, because it has to do with, who played who. Did they play each other? Did Prospect and Hopkinton play each other? Okay, well, who won that game? All right, well, then they would get the tiebreaker. Things like that. And then who had the tougher schedule, who earned more points. Things like, there are tie-breaking things in place, time-breaking, not things, but procedures in place that I'm still learning, and because of that, I'm not going to try and explain it here on the broadcast. But this section right here, I would say you have to kind of keep, I'm going to highlight Guilford as well, you would have to keep an eye on, because these teams could all move, right? Hopkinton and Prospect could flop. St. Thomas and Winnisquam could flop. I think Guilford and Kearsarge are more or less locked into those spots. But, right now, same record, same points, same rating. A lot can still happen between right now at 10:20 in the morning on Sunday, February 15th, or February 12th, to Monday, February 13th, tomorrow. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, right? So currently right now, Guilford is your ninth school. So everybody below Guilford, between Guilford and Campbell, would be playing on the road. everybody Kearsarge and above would be hosting, right? So that's kind of how that works. Now let me tell you about where these teams are going to be playing. Okay, so obviously, like I said, first gets a bye. Conant currently 17-1, also tied with Concord Christian, who's 17-1. So there's a tiebreaker off the current standings right here. But anyways, so whoever finishes first gets a bye. They would automatically advance to that quarterfinal game. Now, the preliminary round game is on February 15th. That is Wednesday this week. And then the quarterfinals will be on the 18th, which is Saturday. Then the semifinals will be on February 23rd, and the finals would be on February 25th. The prelims and the quarters are at the home of the higher seed. The semifinals, not sure where exactly those are currently scheduled to play. Unfortunately, on the playoff date document that the NHIA has, it doesn't have a location written out. Now, granted, that doesn't mean that they don't have a spot yet. They probably do, and we'll find that out tomorrow when the bracket comes out. But the finals will be at Keene State on the 25th of February. So, off of these current standings, right, you have Prospect Mountain, who is currently seated 4th. Again, off of this current standing, right, they would be hosting Newfound on Wednesday. Guilford, one of the other teams in our network, would be at Kearsarge on Wednesday. That should be a good game, 8 versus 9. Now, again, these teams could all switch. You know, Prospect Mountain could fall to 5th, and then they would be playing, you know, the 12th seed, which would be White Mountains. So a lot still up in the air right now that is going to be confirmed tomorrow when the brackets come out. If you remember back in the fall on the DPPG Sports Show, I sat there with Dan and Mike, and we created a mock-up bracket and everything. We never showed you guys because don't want any controversy or misunderstanding. But I chose not to do that because of this whole situation here, where it is very close and very, very, I don't want to say coin toss-ish, but it's very close in the sense that a lot can still move in that top 7, which is crazy. It's just crazy how you play 16 games, and after 16 games, you know, you're looking at a close standings like this. So it's just it's amazing to me how close Division III girls basketball really is. So I guess here's my predictions, okay? Because I know all of you at home right now are going, okay, so we understand that that's a little up in the air still, but who's your thoughts? Who's your predictions? So I'm not going to lie, every time I talk to a coach, whether it be a boys coach, a girls coach, a hockey coach, no matter who, and Division III girls basketball gets brought up, Concord Christian is the first team out of their mouths. Okay? Concord Christian and Conant, I think, are your two teams that this is more or less their championship to lose. Concord Christian, firing on all cylinders. We saw them at Prospect Mountain. They beat them a lot to a little. I think it was like in the 60s to the 30s. Like it was impressive to see the Kingsmen do what they did to the Timberwolves, right? They played Guilford, and they beat them convincingly. So point is that I think that Concord Christian is your team to beat. Conant, also one of those teams. Those are your top two right now, both 17-1. And I think that that's going to be your championship game. And then coming from that championship game would be one of those two. And if I were going to take a guess or make a prediction, I would say it's Concord Christian who's going to win the championship. Now, going back to, the standings, Who else you're probably thinking, who else do you think could be an upset, right? I personally would not, and I'm not just saying this because they're in our network, but I personally would not count out Prospect Mountain. All right, Prospect Mountain, they have 9 girls, I think it is. But let me tell you something. Prospect Mountain is a team that has fight to the end, right? The other night when they were playing Campbell, I think with 2 minutes to go, they were tied at like 23, and you had these girls fighting on the court. Campbell was too, but it was something where it was more or less like Prospect was basically saying, this is our game, and we're not going to let you beat us. And granted, Concord Christian got into some foul trouble, or not Concord Christian, sorry, Campbell got into some foul trouble, and they basically gave the Timberwolves 2 free points at the end, but it still was a close game. But Prospect Mountain was not going to give up. If they play Newfound on Wednesday, again, if they play Newfound on Wednesday, that's going to be a close game. That's going to be a game that's all the way to the end between the Bears and the T-Wolves. But I wouldn't put it past Prospect Mountain to more or less take care of business there. Now, to the other Lakes Region team that we cover in this top bracket, Guilford, don't count them out either. Guilford, I think, has an opportunity to do something pretty spectacular as well. However, I will say this, and I'm going to put an asterisk next to this, and I'll explain why. They are a team that I think is going to do well. However, there's a chance that they could have an off day. I've seen them play a couple different times, and some games they come out firing. Some other games they come out flat. And I'm not a coach. I didn't really play basketball. I can't really sit there and say, oh, it's because of X, Y, and Z. But it is something to note because it's just, unfortunately, come playoff time, you can't have that toss-up, right? It's not, well, we might show up or we might not. You can't do that. If they're going to go play Kearsarge, they have to come into Kearsarge with their A game. They have to be laser focused, ready to go, right? Like that's just how you have to be in playoffs, and I think Guilford can do it. Now, I mentioned the asterisk, and the reason why I say the asterisk is because in the fall, Guilford girls soccer went into the playoffs 19-1. I thought that they had a chance to go to a semifinal. I'm pretty sure I said it on this show. I said, they'll make quarters, semis, they'll get there. What did they do? They went and win it all. They won it all against St. Thomas. So my point in saying that is, as much as I'm going to sit here and say, well, Guilford, they're good, but they have their off days like any team, don't put it past them to literally come out and just go for it. Guilford, for some reason, seems to put on the Jets come playoff time. So they're ones to watch. The other Lakes Region team who made the playoffs unofficially, Newfound. They're going to possibly play Prospect Mountain or Hopkinton, I would assume. That's my guess. They're also, I've seen them play. They are a good team. They are scrappy. They are driven. They are everything you need in a basketball team. So I wouldn't put it past them to make it past that preliminary round, get into the corners, and maybe even get to the semifinals. If they can get to the semifinals, I think that they're going to get to that championship game, because a team like Newfound, once they see the end game, the goal, and it's like a game in front of them, they'll go for it, and they'll work that much harder. That's how I've seen out of their field hockey teams. That's what I've seen out of their soccer teams. That's what I've seen out of their track teams. Everything that I've seen with Newfound suggests that. Them playing Prospect or Hopkinton in round one, a little bit of an uphill battle. But is it possible? Of course. Any given Sunday, right? So that's my thoughts. Unfortunately, other Lakes Region teams that we cover, such as Interlakes, not going to make the playoffs. They're going to finish the season unofficially right now at this moment with a 2-14 record. Other Lakes Region schools, Winnisquam, going to make the playoffs. They are currently seated 7th. They'll most likely host a game on Wednesday. So good luck to the Bears. And for Belmont, unfortunately, they are not going to make the playoffs as they are seated 16th with a 5-12 record. So they're out. All right. So let us move on to the boys. Okay. So hold on. Got too much going on over here. Let's put the bracket up. Put me on. Okay. So zoom out just a touch. Computer's not working with me. All right, so right there, Interlakes, right above my window. That's your cutoff team, your school right now. All right, so let's talk real quick. Division III has 21 teams, and they bring in 14 of the 21 into playoffs. The first 2 get a bye, then 3 will play 14, 4 will play 13, 5 will play 12, 6 will play 11, 7 will play 10, and 8 will play 9. Currently right now, your 14 teams make it in. That's where Interlake sits, and 9 and 8 are your cutoffs, right? So hold on. I did not count this out. Oh, no, I did. Belmont, currently, unofficially, sitting 9th. Right? So everybody above Belmont is going to host. Everybody below Belmont to Interlakes is going to be on the road. So, again, those first 2 schools, as of right now, Guilford and St. Thomas, are going to get a first-round bye. Then everybody else will either host or be on the road. Let me first talk about Interlakes, because Guilford, I think we can all kind of guess where I'm going to go with that one. Okay. Interlakes, currently sitting here with a 6-10 record. They are a good team. We've seen them a handful of times. We saw them play St. Thomas. We saw them play Moultonboro. We saw them play Winnisquam. We saw them play Guilford. They are a good team. This team put up 41 points against Guilford. Right? They had a close game against St. Thomas. They just played a close game against Winnisquam, who's seeded 7th. They, unfortunately, are just getting in on the 14th seed, so they will be the underdog, right? They'll be on the road all the way through. They won't be hosting at all, right? They would play number 3, Mascoma, on Wednesday, unofficially, of course. And then they would play, I don't know how the brackets go, but they'd be on the road for the quarterfinals. And then, of course, the semis and the finals aren't home of the higher seed. They're at neutral sites. But Interlakes, I think, has an opportunity here to make it into the quarterfinals, if not make it into the semifinals. Unfortunately, I think they make it to the quarters. I don't know if they'd make it past the quarters. I didn't, as much as I saw the team this year, I didn't see the team, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a hard thing to say for the Lakers. But I think that they have a chance. If they're playing Mascoma, I think that they have a chance. You know, and again, I could go and look, they played Mascoma, they didn't play Mascoma. I don't know. I'm not going to do that here on the air, because then it kind of becomes what looks like a seminar with me sitting here going, let me scroll through the website. But I think that Interlakes has a chance to make it into the quarterfinals. Let's talk about Guilford. Right, I'm going to highlight Belmont again. This way you know where number 9 is. Let's talk about Guilford. Guilford's going to get a first-round bye. Okay? They're 18-0. They're undefeated. They're looking to defend their state title. multiple state titles. They won in 2020, they won in 2021, and they won in 2023. They're currently 3 in a row. And don't sit there and give me the 2.5 because they had a tie. They ended in a tie in 2020 because of COVID. Don't give me that. I still count that as a championship. There are some people who don't. I do. Now, Guilford, they're obviously, like I said, defending their state title. They're undefeated. They're looking at going right to the quarterfinals against 8 and 9, if I'm not mistaken, the winner of 8 and 9. And they're wondering if they're going to get the same locker room at Keene. All right, that's not true. Because Guilford is also the boys' team, just like BG, as I mentioned earlier, probably one of the most down-to-earth and humble teams you'll ever meet. They know what they got, right? The Reese brothers know what they do. Logan Grant knows what he can do. Brendan Baldy knows what he can do. You know, everybody on that team knows what they can do. They know where they are, and they know what they can accomplish together as a team as well as individually. Does that mean that they're automatically wondering, or they're thinking right now, where are we going to put the banner? No, they're not. Because the coaching staff there makes sure that that does not happen. You know, talking to Coach Acalano, he says the same exact thing. Take it one game at a time. You know, you never know what's going to happen in that game. They played Belmont the other night. We kind of all had a feeling that Guilford might win, but you never knew. You never knew for sure, right? Belmont could have came out and Guilford could have had an off day. Because that is something you have to remember, that as much as it's Guilford, you have Guilford that's made up of 5 players who is, they're all human, right? And as simple as this sounds, a player, and I'm saying this in a generic sense, I'm not just saying one specific team here, a player stepping off the bus could step wrong on the curb or something, and that changes your whole game, right? That player might be like, I'm fine, but they're not at 100%, right? Think about that, how simple that is. Now, am I saying that that's going to happen? No. Because 9 times out of 10, a player, if that happens, the player's going to sit there and say, okay, I need, and then they'll be fine. You know, and especially a team like Guilford to that caliber, you can't tell me that those players haven't experienced something like that, where it was like, oh yeah, I stepped wrong on my gravel driveway, but I know what I need to do to be at 100%. You know, I know what I need to go tell the athletic trainer to be good. So, point is that Guilford, in my opinion, and this is my prediction here before I talk about the other ones, this is Guilford's championship to lose. Okay? 18-0, they're beating teams sizably. I think that they're going to do something here, and they're going to go for 4 in a row. With that being said, am I going to go into Friday's quarterfinal thinking, these guys got it? No. I'm going to go into that quarterfinal saying, any given Sunday. Because you never know who's going to show up. You never know what your opponent's going to do. You never know. Remember that. Too many factors. Always remember that. So, Guilford, they're going to get a first-round bye. If I can picture the playoff brackets, they would play the winner of 8 and 9. Who is currently seated 8 and 9? Conant and Belmont. So the winner of that game would play Guilford in the quarterfinals. And let me tell you something, folks. If Belmont moves on to the quarterfinals and plays Guilford, that's going to be standing room only at Guilford High School. And DPPG would be there. DPPG will be there regardless of who Guilford is playing. But you get my drift. All right. So let me talk about, first of all, before I go any further, let me tell you the plan, the dates for the boys championship. Okay, these guys are going to play the quarterfinals on Wednesday. All right, Tuesday. They're going to play the preliminary round on Tuesday. My apologies. That will be home of the higher seed. The quarterfinals will be on Friday, the 17th. Then the semifinals will be on February 22nd. Just like the girls, to be announced. Again, that location is probably tacked down on the NHIAA end of things, but they just haven't announced it yet to us, and that's okay. But then the finals will be on the 25th at Keene State. That game is at 8 p.m. The girls' game for Division III is at 5. Talk about a good day to be at Keene State for Division III. Girls at 5, boys at 8. Now, that's the dates, all right? The basketball playoffs are done for Division III on February 25th. Now, let me go back to here, okay? Let's talk about this real quick, right? Let's talk about these teams. And let me give you an idea of what I think. I already kind of told you about Interlakes. I told you about Guilford. My prediction for your championship game, it's kind of hard to tell. All right? Because in my opinion, I would say it's your top two. I would say, and my gut feeling, or not my gut feeling, my first thought is that is your top two. You know, Guilford and St. Thomas. But Mascoma, they can play well too. Stevens can play well too. Winnisquam, currently seeded 7th, they can play well too. All teams who I believe Guilford has beaten convincingly, currently undefeated, so they have beat them if they did play them. But score-wise, I think they beat them convincingly. But I think that if you're looking at a championship game prediction, in my opinion, I would, and this is so cliche, but I would go with the top two. I would say that that's your two, St. Thomas and Guilford. Out of that game, I'm not sure. My gut says it's St. Thomas, or it would be Guilford. But St. Thomas knows how to win, and they know how to stop teams like Guilford. So I think that's a toss-up at the end of the day. Is that what's going to happen? Probably not. But who knows until we know? You know what I mean? Who knows until we're actually at Keene State on the 25th, and we know who's in this game, and 4 quarters go by, and a team is hoisting the trophy. You know, any given Sunday. Always remember that. Other Lakes Region teams for us. Prospect Mountain, unfortunately, bottom of the list here. So is Newfound. Prospect had a 13-3 record. Newfound with a 2-14 record. Interlakes, like I said, 14th on the standings. And then Belmont, mid-packing. Doing really well, though. Coach Martinez has done a great job with the Raiders over in Belmont to get them to where they need to be. And I think that they have a good chance at making a playoff run. I think that they could beat Conant in round 1 if this is official, or if this was official. If this is the way it's going to be, I would say that they have a good chance of beating Conant in round 1. They would then play Guilford. Who knows about that one? Because as much as anybody out there is going to sit there and say, no, Guilford is beatable. The issue with Guilford, is that Coach Acalano's playbook is as big as this desk, right? So you're going to sit there and you're going to say, I know how to stop you, and he's going to go, yeah, well, I have stuff I haven't even shown you yet. So that's the issue with Guilford if you're another team or if you're an opponent. But anyways, Winnisquam, they would play 7, would play 10. So they would play Monadnock, and I think that would be a good game. I think Winnisquam could beat Monadnock, but I think it would be a good game. And that's really all of the Lakes Region schools. in the area, right? So again, if I'm going to make a playoff prediction right now or a championship prediction, I'd say it's Guilford. I'd say Guilford's going for a 4-peat. Am I going to go, walking around town saying it's done? We, raise the banner, schedule the title town show? No. Not until we know, right? Not until that bus comes through the town. If that bus comes through the town, right? You have to remember that because everybody out there right now is going to sit there and they're going to say, this is Guilford. Guilford got this. Same thing with Belmont Guilford. Oh, Belmont Guilford has this. But what happened last night? The empire of Belmont Guilford, where everybody was sitting there saying this is their championship to lose, they lost. Think about that. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say. Anyways, so I think that at the end of the day, that's how your playoffs are going to go. I think that you're going to have, for our our Lakes region schools, for the boys, you're going to have Guilford. They're going to have a first-round bye. We know that for sure, but they're going to play the winner of 8 and 9, who would be Conant or Belmont. And then Interlakes would be headed to Mascoma on Tuesday. For the girls, like I said, Prospect Mountain, I'm thinking is going to host Newfound on Wednesday, and Guilford is going to go to Kearsarge. So we will have to see just how accurate that is. So I'm just cleaning up my desktop here because we don't need the NHIA website anymore. So there we go. Let's talk real quick. We are about an hour in. I think this is a good point. Let's talk real quick about the upcoming schedule here on DPPGnetwork.com. There's my... Oh, no. I closed out of all my tabs. Facebook, are you still alive? Facebook, you still out there? Hang on 1 second, folks. Sorry. All right, Facebook's still with us. That's good. That is good. All right. Just closed all the tabs on my computer over here, and I just kind of panicked. So let's talk real quick about the upcoming schedule here. This week is probably, I don't want to say the biggest toss-up, but it more or less is because you have hockey games who we know for sure are playing, but we don't know for sure playoff-wise who's playing, right? I just gave you my predictions on who I think who's going to be where and everything, but as I mentioned, we won't know for sure until the brackets come out, right? So let's talk real quick about what we do know. Tomorrow, February 13th here on DPPGnetwork.com, you can watch Molten Borough Academy's senior night basketball games live on our website. The girls will play at 5, and the boys will play at 6:30, both games against Lisbon. That'll be a lot of fun. We've never covered a game of Molten Borough Academy. I'm super excited to go up to Molten Borough. I got Dan Kernan, who is normally one of the co-hosts here. He'll be announcing the game with me, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think you're going to want to tune into that game. Or games. Girls at 5, boys at 6:30. Now, on Valentine's Day, which is Tuesday, by the way, just a heads up for all of you out there who might not have gotten your Valentine's Day gifts. So on Tuesday, that is the boys' Division III prelim round. Right now, I don't think we're going to have any place to go cover because all of our teams are either going to be on the road or having a bye. That could change when the brackets come out. We could maybe switch things up. I don't know yet, but that's that. Wednesday. This is a busy day for us on Wednesday. So before we even talk about playoffs, Laconia Winnisquam Interlakes is going to host Kingswood at 3:45 on Wednesday for ice hockey. And then at 6 o'clock, Belmont Guilford is going to host Pembroke Campbell on Wednesday as well. So hockey Wednesday night hockey doubleheader. You can watch it live here on DPPG Network. That's, again, 3:45 the Lakers game, 6 o'clock for the Bulldogs game. Now, as far as playoffs, let's throw that in there, right? Got a preliminary round game for the girls on Wednesday, currently scheduled for 7 p.m. You can watch it, or we're working on possibly covering that Prospect Mountain game if Prospect hosts Newfound. Again, if. We'll get back to you on that. Talk about a busy Wednesday, though, for us. 2 hockey games and a playoff basketball game. Now, on Thursday, easiest day of the week. You know why? There are no games. Literally, no games. Then on Friday, we have 2 games for you here. We have the playoff game between Guilford and the winner of 8 and 9, if I'm not mistaken, as well as senior night at Laconia, where the St. Chums are going to host Conval in boys basketball. You can watch both those games live and on demand here on DPPGnetwork.com. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then on Saturday, we have possibly another girls' playoff game. Again, possibly. Prospect Mountain, if they play Wednesday, they host Wednesday. If they win Wednesday, they host Saturday. So that's basically that. So keep an eye on our websites, or on our website and our social media, Roku channels everywhere for all the information as to where we'll be, what we're doing, things like that. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. All right, that is basically all I got here on this Sunday morning. Yeah. But I think that this week's playoff games are going to be a lot of fun. I think that, you're going to have Prospect Mountain's going to host one way or another. Who they're hosting, we're still waiting to find out. Where is Guilford going to Kearsarge? Most likely. For girls, on the boys' side, Guilford's going to have a first-round bye, so they're going to play on Friday. Against who? We're not sure yet. I'm thinking it could either be Conan or Belmont. And then for Interlakes, they're going to most likely, they're on the road. The question is where. As of right now, according to those standings that we just talked about, it would be Mascoma. So, yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, that's really how this week for playoff-wise is going to go. Like I said, we got 2 hockey games on Wednesday between Laconia, Winnisquam, Interlakes, and Kingswood, and Belmont, Guilford, and Pembroke Campbell, as well as on Monday, tomorrow, we have Molten Borough Academy's senior night for the boys and girls basketball teams, both playing Lisbon, 5 o'clock for the girls, 6:30 for the boys. So, yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. As soon as those brackets come out tomorrow, don't worry. We are going to post them on our social media accounts. I'll throw them on Instagram. I'll throw them on Facebook, Twitter, everything, everywhere. So keep it locked on our social media accounts tomorrow. And then we will do our best to update all of you guys as to where we'll be. And yeah, so that'll be fun. I'm excited. It'll be a great week here on DPPGnetwork.com. But until we see each other, I guess that's the end of the broadcast, end of our show here. But it will be, like I said, make sure to follow us on social media for updates and things like that. And we'll do our best to keep you guys up to date with everything. And yeah, I mean, that's all she wrote. So want to say thank you all so much for tuning in. Hopefully this broadcast was informational and things like that, even though it's just me, myself, and I. We hope you have a great night. Enjoy the Super Bowl. I don't have a pick on it. My Bills got knocked out a couple weeks ago. I'm counting down the days to race day. NASCAR returns in 7 days for the Daytona 500. But, yeah, until we see each other for the next DPPG Sports Show here from Elite Sports Academy, we hope you have a great week, and good luck to all teams competing this week. And that's all I got. So have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you all real soon.